Hi, welcome Chip Sudderth. Hi,
Morning.
hi, welcome Chip Sudderth.
It's great to be here. Hello, PopCon.
So you work for Durham County Schools, but you love podcasting. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I have been podcasting ever since the Russell T Davies era of Doctor Who. I have been a 10th Doctor fan. Although, if you'll look behind me, you might see that somebody is really competing for those affections. So I've
The
been
13th
talking about
Doctor.
what's that?
The 13th Doctor?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you're holding something that was designed by one Kelly Yates, if I recall
Yes,
correctly.
we're speaking to him next.
Oh, that's fantastic. He is a great guy. Anyway, I've been talking about Doctor Who ever since the late Russell T Davies era on my podcast, 2 Minute Time Lord. I've also been involved in several other podcasts over the years, including This Week in Time Travel, The Audio Guide to Babylon 5, and The Incomparable, which is a network of big pop culture stuff. So I talk about lots of things that have absolutely nothing to do with my day job, and that keeps me sane throughout the days.
So tell me a little bit about 2 Minute Time Lord.
2 Minute Time Lord is a quick hit podcast of mini essays that are almost never actually 2 minutes long. That was the original goal that I had. But back when Doctor Who podcasting was in the early days, and this is about 10 years ago or so. So I've been at this for a long time. Um, just about all of the podcasts that were out there would edge toward 2 hours long because people have a lot to say about Doctor Who, and many of their opinions were just absolutely wrong, and I couldn't stand it. Um, so my goal was to try to get a word in edgewise as more podcasts came in. How can I do something that people will actually have time to listen to with all the other great content out there? And I hit on the idea of short 2 minute essays, and 2 Minute Time Lord was born.
Why
Um,
did you choose podcasting?
I'm sorry.
Why did you choose podcasting as your method?
I like talking. And it's hard to talk out of a static web page, out of a blog entry or something like that. You know, Blogs were a thing back then. I hear they're making a comeback. But I wanted to talk about the things that I cared about, and I'm a pretty good public speaker, and I'm good at writing short and to the point stuff. So it just seemed to come together. And I like listening to podcasts. You don't have a real relationship with the people that you listen to unless you actually meet them. But whether it's conversational or essay, you get to know the people that are doing these podcasts over time, and I wanted to be known, and it just turned into a thing. I have made some of my deepest friendships through the Doctor Who podcasting community, and it's opened doors to a lot of other activity, such as participation in the incomparable network of pop culture podcasts. I've gotten to talk about the Matrix um, and and just other science fiction properties that I care an awful lot about. And it all started with talking about Doctor Who for roughly 2 minutes at a time.
And how did you meet Radio Free Skaro?
Um, it's their fault in some ways because, okay, for those of you listening who have been around the block with Doctor Who and remember the good old days, I was a big Russell T Davies fan. Not every episode was my cup of tea, but most of them were, and I really loved what happened with David Tennant and Christopher Eccleston as the Doctor. And Russell T Davies had these big season finales, and they either landed with you or they didn't. And my friends at Radio Free Scaro, uh, they didn't like Last of the Time Lords. They didn't like Journey's End. They didn't like The End of Time. and after a certain amount of time, you just want equal time.
Right.
So that's why I started. That's one of the reasons why I started 2MTL is, shiny happy spite. But they took notice of the podcast as I was starting up. They said nice things about me when I went to my first convention and did interviews from my first convention, which was Hurricane Who in Florida.
Okay.
And then I met them at the greatest Doctor Who
Right.
fan convention in the world, Gallifrey 1.
I go every other year.
And what's that?
I go every other year.
Yeah, I'm on the every year plan, although, we're just crossing our fingers for this February. But I'm part of their live show crew, and I've been able to give 2-minute Time Lord essays during their live show at Gallifrey 1 every time. It's nice that podcasting and other fan creativity that is distant has led to making some really strong fan relationships in real life at conventions like this one, and certainly Gallifrey 1 in Los Angeles, which is, chef's kiss.
Right. Because they're in California, and where are they? They're in California, right? Or
Radio Free Skaro?
Yeah.
They are very Canadian.
Canadian. Okay.
Yeah, Edmonton and Vancouver.
So it's nice that because we're on the East Coast and they're in the North and we meet in the West, it's a way to, the podcasting world has actually united people all over the whole country.
Absolutely. And it's not just podcasting, of course. YouTube is a bigger platform right now that a lot more people are using. And there's a chance for a lot more people to see your hot takes about Doctor Who, which is a mixed blessing because some of those hot takes are pretty dreadful, especially with some of the misogyny that's out there about the 13th Doctor.
Right.
But there's just been this explosion of fan creativity. And now that we have to be socially distant, we have to be physically distant, but we don't have to be socially distant.
Right.
And this explosion of fan creativity in podcasting, YouTubing, essaying, whatever, they help connect the fandom. And that's keeping the fandom going right now.
So did you say you were on YouTube as well?
No, I've thought about it, but if anybody here listening to this conversation is interested in fan creativity, one of the benefits of podcasting over YouTube is that it is much less expensive, and ideas matter almost more, I would say, in podcasting than YouTube because there's less distraction, there's less visual distraction.
Right.
So
you're not tethered to a device. You can walk around and listen to it.
You can, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Some of my loudest rants against what I've been listening to of podcasts has been happening while I've been mowing the lawn.
Right. I listen to them every morning. I love the long form interviews like Chris Hardwick and Dax Shepard and Radio Free Skaro. So tell us about, how do you start a podcast? Like, what kind of equipment do you need? Where do you list it?
Right. So everything is relative. I say that podcasting is not an expensive hobby, but it can be. And when you're starting out, you have to amass a certain amount of equipment, but it depends on what you're hoping to achieve. You can record a good quality voice memo on an iPhone,
right? And
find a hosting service like Libsyn, Libsyn. And set up a podcast feed that Apple Podcasts or Google Play will pick up on and download, and you can get a small audience that way. And it will be small unless you're part of a community already that you let them know through social media or local connections or whatever. A decent quality microphone for more professional podcasting. You can get one for about $50. Yeah. You don't need an expensive computer. There is free software like Audacity, which is absolutely, literally free, that you can use to edit audio. as you go deeper into the hobby, you can spend more money on audio editing software, on higher quality microphones. If you want to make video a piece of it, you can buy lights and green screens and things like that. But podcasting is, on balance, an affordable hobby, and as long as you don't want to try to make a career of it, the barrier to entry is really low. It's not a self-sustaining business at this point for a whole lot of people.
There's something called Patreon, where people can help support your endeavors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Patreon, and some other crowdfunding options like that. They're basically tip jars, and Patreon allows people to do special content for members and subscribers. My friends at The Incomparable have a combination of, and that is a successful business because they have so many podcasts and so many programs and so many viewers, that the relationships that they've built over the years. They do it with a combination of some advertising and member support. And it's great. It is great to be able to put something in the tip jar and support these. As one of the incomparable podcasts is a review of other podcasts out there, and it's called Friends in Your Ears. Literally, that's the name of the podcast, Friends in Your Ears. And it's nice to be able to put something in the tip jar for these friends in your ears.
So tell me about The Incomparable. It's like an umbrella company, and they have lots of different podcasts.
Yeah, and the flagship podcast is called The Incomparable. It's hosted by and run by a great guy named Jason Snell, who is a longtime journalist about Macintosh computers. He wrote for MacUser and Macworld magazines, and then struck out on his own at a website called sixcolors.com. And he has a lot of technology podcasts with a company called Relay FM, but he also scratches his pop culture itch with The Incomparable, with a large group of friends and acquaintances and pop culture personalities who join him for panel discussions about current pop culture, old pop culture, bad science fiction movies, you
My
name
favorite.
it, comics and everything. At theincomparable.com. I've been very fortunate to be a part of the panel over time, and one of the more prolific side people on it. And it all came because Jason, who I knew as a Macintosh journalist, and I'm a Macintosh geek, just
as well.
just tweeted at me out of the blue because he liked one of my 2-Minute Time Lord episodes. Surprise.
So tell me about your podcasting journey. You've done a Babylon 5 as well, and maybe an Expanse.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm sorry, I forgot that one. Yeah,
I've researched you a little bit.
just a bit. You know me better than I know me. Babylon 5 was my first deep science fiction fandom.
Loved it.
It is a very 90s show, a very 90s show, and spinning off of the name of a website called The Lurker's Guide to Babylon 5, which is still kicking around, which was one of the first websites that really dissected a show in real time as it was coming out. I and my wife Shannon Sudderth and our friend Erica Ensign of the Doctor Who podcast Verity, we were all Babylon 5 fans, and we started the audio guide to Babylon 5. And every 2 weeks, we reviewed a new episode, and that was our own 5-year mission, to go every 2 weeks, episode by episode by episode. And it was really emotional when we came to the end of that. And there's a spin-off series called Crusade. It is about an alien plague that has covered the planet. We're going to wait a while before we get to that one. It's just a little too timely.
Okay.
And
yes, that would be a little sensitive at the moment.
Just a bit. Similarly, we've just put pause on a project called A Legitimate Salvage, which is a reference to the Rocinante on the Expanse, which is currently on Amazon Prime, and we powered through a rewatch of it leading up to the start of the fourth season. Um, Warren Fry from Radio Free Skaro, uh, Jen Burt, and Katie Burt, who's an editor at the Den of Geek website. The four of us just sort of powered through The Expanse. So there's loads of stuff that you can do with podcasting, whether it's commenting on current shows, doing retrospectives, or even just doing out of the box stuff, original fiction, radio drama.
Right.
It's a fantastic medium that you can do so much with relatively little expense.
Journalists are even starting to do nonfiction serialized accounts of things that they would normally write in books.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know why you'd do a podcast about anything that's not Doctor Who, but you can.
So tell me about your adventures. Have you interviewed anybody from the show?
I have at a convention in New York, Long Island Who. I think the longest and most meaningful interview that I got to do was an interview of Noel Clarke, who played Mickey Smith in the first two seasons and change of the series. Fascinating guy. Fascinating guy. He's very talented, very thoughtful, very committed to equity and excellence in everything you do. Not afraid to speak his mind. And he seemed to really enjoy the interview. And it was a pleasure to talk with him, not just about his time on Doctor Who, but his time as a director of movies, adulthood, kidulthood, brotherhood, those movies and things like that. Fascinating guy. I was also, I think, the first podcaster. It was just for a 5-minute quick hit, but I was also the first Doctor Who podcaster to interview Billie Piper at the Gallifrey One convention, and she was lovely. Yeah, she was lovely. She was struggling through a cold that weekend.
I remember that weekend, Gallifrey One, right? 2014, maybe 13.
Yeah, but she was lovely and patient, and took a few minutes of time out from her autograph line to talk with me, and that was great. So I've had the opportunity to interview several Doctor Who personalities in what I call time dilation episodes of my podcast, which abandon the format and they're actual honest to goodness interviews. And in my experience, I've never run into a Doctor Who actor or writer or personality who's come to these conventions and who has not been just really generous with their time. Remember that Doctor Who is much more of a niche thing here in the US than it is in Britain. And there's a level of appreciation between American Doctor Who fans and British Doctor Who creatives, because it's not everywhere here. You have to look for it. You have to become part of the community to really find it, and it's been great. It is a wonderful community to be a part of.
So, how do you get the word out? You have connections, but do you also advertise? Do you use Facebook, Instagram?
I use social media, but I use free social media. And to be fair, pandemic times, I've taken some periodic time away from the podcast. I just launched a new episode today, but I took a couple of weeks because the pandemic is tiring for all of us, and sometimes you just need to give yourself a break and reduce your stuff. But one of Jason at the Incomparables mantras for podcast success is something that I've struggled with a little bit over the time. In addition to promoting yourself, in addition to being out there on social media and interacting with fandom communities and things like that, the most important thing is regular production. Set a schedule every week, every 2 weeks, give people the chance to find out that you're there and to and to get used to hearing you, and you organically build up an audience that way. And when you take breaks like I do, sometimes you have to claw that audience back.
Do you have any dream guests that you would like to speak to? Oh, did he drop?
I'm here.
There
I'm
we are.
sorry.
Do you have any dream guests that you'd like to talk to? Who's your favorite doctor?
So the answer to that question is one and the same. David, Jody, if you're listening, um, David Tennant is historically my favorite doctor. I love the charisma that he brings to the role and just the wit. But Jodie Whittaker is the doctor of today, and she feels like the doctor of tomorrow. Absolutely, absolutely. Um, Chris Chibnall has opened up so much with Doctor Who these days. People can disagree about about the storytelling style and whether that's what they want from their show. I really love it. I really love it, and I would love to talk to Jodie Whittaker about her experience being part of the Doctor Who community, her time on her first two seasons, and what she wants to do with the role going forward. I would love to talk to David Tennant about, and then he's had some of these interviews, but I want my turn, darn it. I
Right.
would love to talk to David Tennant about looking back at the role and his perspective on it. It's hard to believe how many years it's been since he's been the Doctor. I feel like he could still just sort of walk into that role effortlessly, whether it's in Big Finish or Here's My Dream.
I
Here's
was
my
about
dream.
to say Big Finish.
Yeah, but here's my dream. Russell T Davies gave David Tennant and Billy Piper the greatest gift in the world in Journey's End. So the 10th Doctor gets cloned, and he and Rose are left on a parallel world. The clone and Billy and Rose are left on a parallel world to fall in love with each other the way
Uh-huh.
that they couldn't quite as the Doctor and Rose, um, but that means that gives David Tennant permission to age and to
Uh-huh.
show back up on Doctor Who anytime, not as the 10th Doctor, but as what my friends at Radio Free Skaro call the Handy Doctor.
Right, because he was created
Yeah,
from a hand.
yeah. So I want to interview David Tennant, and I want to lean on him hard to have him lean on Chris Chibnall hard to bring him and Billy Piper back for a guest appearance with Jodie Whittaker as the clone Doctor and Rose from that parallel world.
I would love that. What do you think of the Jodie Whittaker being and her regeneration being a completely new? There was 12 before the 12 we know, and the introduction of those doctors that we've never seen before. What do you think of that?
It is mind-blowingly
I
cool.
love it.
It is mind-blowingly cool. The Joe Joe Walton, I believe is her last name. The Ruth Doctor, as we call her.
Uh-huh.
Introducing her as a previously unknown doctor, a black woman who fully inhabits the role of the Doctor, has her own TARDIS, has her own personality and agency, and showed up in Prisoner of the Jadoon and in The Timeless Children. That is a game changer.
It is.
But we had 12 white guys as the Doctor before, and as important as actors like Noel Clarke and Freema Agyeman and
I
Pearl
love Freeman
Mackie,
too.
yeah, as important as having them such vital parts of the show, um, Tosin Cole, Mandip Gill, um, so many women and non-binary people who have been watching Doctor Who, wanting to see themselves as the title character, not just not just the friend of the title character.
Right.
You know, that door opened just a little bit wider when Jodie Whittaker came on. It opened wider still with the introduction of the Ruth Doctor, and then it can. We've been saying all along that Doctor Who is for everyone. It can tell any story. Anybody can be the Doctor, and it's becoming more and more clear that that is true.
Right. They also implied that she was from another universe.
That our Doctor was.
Right.
Yeah. So where is that going? Who
I
knows?
know. That's great.
You know, Doctor Who is my favorite science fiction show because an academic named Matt Hills in the UK has described it as you can do horror stories, you can do science fiction. Careful about it. You can do fantasy stories. You can go into history. You can go into the future. You open the box and you can tell any story you want to. When I was a kid playing role-playing games, my friends and we would mash up every tabletop RPG we had. You know, you want to play a little bit of BattleTech here. You want to play a little bit of Warhammer 40K here. You know, let characters be time and dimension people and just place. You know, it was self-indulgent as hell, but we had loads of fun with it because it made us believe that we could be anywhere and do anything. Doctor Who is that show. It does that for us. And so that's between that and the fact that it is for family audiences, it's for everyone, for everybody from age 9 to 90. That's the reason that I love the show. That's the reason I podcast about it. And that's the reason why I go to conventions to just sort of soak it in with fellow fans who see the same thing that I do.
Are you as interested in the classic Who?
I am. There's only so much time in the day. And I do prefer the modern series.
Okay.
Peter Davison is my classic Doctor. He's got that pleasant open face. Reference for those who read the Target novelizations.
His time team is my time team.
It's a great time team.
Yeah.
You know, and we haven't had a proper time team since up until now with Graham and Yaz and Ryan. But one of my favorite Doctor Who episodes of all time is the 7th Doctor episode, Remembrance of the Daleks.
Okay.
Which is it's a little unusual because it's almost more of an action adventure episode. And but Ace kicks butt in it. There's a great scene between the 7th Doctor and I forget the actor's name, but he was the butler in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air later on, where they're talking about fate. And you know, it is a perfect, if you're only familiar with the with the new Doctor Who series and you want to dip your toes into the classic series, I would recommend Remembrance of the Daleks, a 7th Doctor episode. It's got Daleks, it's got Davros, it's got action and mystery, and it's a load of fun.
My favorite is The Visitation.
Okay.
We go back to the Great Fire of London.
That is one of the episodes that I remember watching when I was a kid. And I remember the Doctor's disappointment when they smashed the sonic screwdriver, and that was it for the sonic. That was it for the sonic screwdriver for years until it came back and you know, and essentially basically turned into a bit of a magic wand in the new series. But you know, I'm okay with that because these episodes move. The classic series they were slower moving serials. They were in 4 parts, spread out. You know, with basically 2 hours worth of story. You get a good story every 45, 50 minutes at the new series, and you just don't have time to mess around. And if you can solve a problem by waving a sonic screwdriver around, go for it.
So, what is in your future? What are you going to work on?
More 2-minute Time Lord, more work with the Incomparable podcast team, and looking for more opportunities. I had a great run of episodes of another podcast called This Week in Time Travel when I took a hiatus from 2 Minute Time Lord with some friends who, we had some more traditional discussions about the show. And I look for opportunities like that, but um, I just can't wait to hear when Doctor Who is coming back so that we can talk about new episodes again.
Right. Are we going to get a Christmas episode? Have they announced that? I can't remember.
They haven't announced specifically. We are going to get a holiday episode that
Okay.
has been shot. There are rumors that it will be the swan song for one or two companions,
Okay.
but not the complete cast. And then who knows? Who knows when they'll be able to get back into the swing of making new episodes. I would love it if it's going to be delayed for a while. Heck, let's spend some money that you don't have, BBC. Let's animate a few episodes while we're waiting.
They
Um,
have released some animations for the second Doctor.
mhm.
Which one was it? Evil of the Daleks?
Power of the Daleks.
Power of the Daleks.
And there's another one coming out like right now called The Faceless Ones. There are so many episodes of Doctor Who that are missing because the tapes were wiped,
Right.
because nobody knew how important preserving that history would be. But fans made audio recordings of every episode over the years. So there are animated reconstructions of a lot of episodes out there right now. Another great thing is, and you mentioned it before, Big Finish. Big Finish is the company that makes Doctor Who audio adventures, and Christopher Eccleston just announced that he is going to return to the role for Big Finish, and I couldn't be more excited about that.
Me as well. Rose has several stories all her own, and
The
I
Dimension
believe, and
Canon.
it's coming back
Mhm.
with the 10th Doctor.
Yeah. And I would also recommend for folks, Big Finish is it's a great way to get a hit of Doctor Who if you haven't been if you haven't been if you're jonesing for Doctor Who since the show's been off. I would recommend Big Finish audios, and the one that I would start with is called Blood of the Daleks, which launched a line of Eighth Doctor adventures with Paul McGann from the TV movie in 1996.
Yep.
And those Big Finishes they're paced like a modern TV episode. So if you like what's been happening over the last, oh God, I'm old, since Doctor Who came back,
Was it 2001?
2005, 2005. So if you like that, some audio hits with Paul McGann and Sheridan Smith as his companion Lucy Miller. It's like watching a TV episode, but the images are all in your mind.
So 2 Minute Time Lord, how often does that come out?
Let's see here. In theory, when after hiatuses and things like that, it's a weekly podcast. And I have been taking some breaks because of the pandemic and all that stuff, but that is the ideal, and that's what I'm working toward as we get back into the swing of things.
So is there anything else you want to tell us about in your future? I know we can find you on Facebook at 2 Minute Time Lord 2, like the numeral 2 Minute Time Lord, and on Twitter
at numeral 2 Minute Time Lord. The website for the podcast is at twominutetimelord.com.
Right.
And that's a mistake that I made more than 10 years ago that I'll never live down. I have to spell it out every single time at the end of the podcast. But I'd love for y'all to follow me on numeral 2 Minute Time Lord on Twitter, especially. And loads and loads of episodes. And you can search for topics and go through it. My very first episode was commenting on the announcement that this guy named Matt Smith, whoever he was, had just been announced as the Doctor. And it's going back through these things, and most of these episodes are very short, is a really good time capsule into seeing the growth of Doctor Who over the years.
And I love how you say at the beginning, 2 minutes, because your time is important to you.
Yeah, because we're all in a hurry. and you know we're not commuting as much as we used to be. So maybe shorter podcasts have a bit of an advantage for me. Who knows? Maybe why did I take some time off? This is my time.
Well, thank you for talking to us. I really enjoyed this interview.
Thank you so much. Doctor Who is the greatest science fiction show in the universe, and it's a pleasure to talk about it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
That was Chip Sudderth talking about podcasting. He runs 2 Minute Time Lord. And if you want to check out that, you can go to 2 Minute Time Lord. That's TWO Minute Time Lord, and listen to his podcast. He's also on Apple Podcast. You can download them on iTunes, not iTunes, the podcast app on your phone. Coming up next, we're going to have Kelly Yates, and we're going to show you some of his art right now. He will be on at 12 o'clock. And then